Welcome back to Faith Talks. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Mike. We're really glad you're with us today.
This episode is based on a sermon titled Fill My House, preached by Pastor Kai-Woon Choi. We want to say clearly from the beginning, this message and its insights belong to him. We're simply reflecting on and discussing what he shared.
And it's a powerful, timely message, especially for churches thinking about vision, purpose, and faithfulness.
The sermon centers on Jesus' parable in Luke 14, where a man prepares a great banquet and invites many guests.
Everything is ready, the table is set. But when the invitation goes out, people start making excuses.
What's striking is that the excuses aren't sinful things. They're taking care of property, work, family, good things.
And Pastor Choi makes this important point. Often the greatest enemy of the best is not the bad, but the good.
When the invited guests refuse, the master doesn't cancel the banquet.
Instead, he expands the invitation to the poor, the outcast, the overlooked, and then even further, to those along the highways and hedges.
And the master's reason is simple and clear, so that my house may be filled.
Pastor Choi frames this as God's heart. God is a host who loves a full table.
Out of this parable, Pastor Choi shares a vision God placed on his heart. Fill God's house.
Specifically, with people, prayer, and praise.
And the promise that follows is beautiful. When we fill God's house with those things, God fills his house with his presence, glory, truth, and light.
Let's start with people. Pastor Choi reminds us that rejection is part of the gospel story.
Some will say no, but Jesus never tells us to stop inviting.
In fact, Jesus uses a strong word, compel them to come in.
And Pastor Choi is careful to explain, this isn't about pressure or force.
It's about loving urgency. The gospel is too precious to keep to ourselves.
He even shares a personal story of a man who kept sharing the gospel with his friend, even after being rejected, until that persistence finally led his friend to faith.
We don't share the gospel to grow numbers.
We share because it is God's will and because we have been loved first.
Next comes prayer. Pastor Choi asks a great question. If people fill God's house, what sustains them once they come?
Prayer.
He points to Jesus cleansing the temple, reminding everyone that God's house is meant to be a house of prayer, not noise, clutter, or transaction.
That part really hit me. When he said we often bring our own tables into the sanctuary, our schedules, anxieties, and checklist faith.
Prayer, he says, clears the clutter and makes room for God's presence.
And he models this personally, praying through every room of the church, believing that prayer isn't just something we do in a room, but something we leave in a room.
The third movement is praise, drawn from 2 Chronicles 5.
When Solomon finished the temple, God's glory didn't fill it because the building was complete, but because the people praised God in unity.
They declared together, "He is good, and his loving kindness is everlasting."
And then the glory came.
Pastor Choi reminds us that praise invites God's presence.
But he also gives a sober warning. Scripture shows not only how God's glory comes, but how it can depart.
Ezekiel saw God's glory leave the temple because of people's idolatry.
And Pastor Choi gently challenges us to examine our own hearts. Busyness, self-reliance, jealousy, anything that competes with God.
The message ends with a clear, hopeful call.
God invites us to be a church that welcomes all, prays faithfully, and praises joyfully.
When we do our part, God does what only He can do.
He fills his house, not just with people, but with his living presence.
Once again, we give full credit to Pastor Kai-Woon Choi for this message, Fill My House.
Thank you for joining us on Faith Talks. May this conversation inspire you to invite, to pray, and to praise.
Until next time, let's keep filling His house.